American 2344 on that flaw, runway 27 right, clear for takeoff.
Last time on FS MaNiA, we flew the Cessna Citation Longitude into the Atlanta Hartsfield International Airport. Today we're back in Atlanta preparing for a trip to the Dulles International Airport in Washington, D.C. At long last, for the first time on the FS MaNiA Channel, we are featuring a commercial airliner. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner, in my opinion, represents the cutting edge in commercial aviation technology. Well, at least it does in the real world. As far as the MSFS version goes, it is a default aircraft included with the premium version of MSFS. It's not a study level airliner and it is far from perfect. But today we're going to find out if it has enough functionality to fly in an ATC environment like VATSIM. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner is a long-haul, wide-body, twin-engine jetliner which is focused on efficiency. The program was launched in 2004 with the first 787-8 delivered in 2011. The Dreamliner represents state-of-the-art and modern airliners utilizing cutting-edge technologies and materials to create an airliner that is 20% more fuel efficient than the 767 it is designed to replace. The 787 is the first major commercial airplane to have a composite carbon fiber fuselage. Carbon fiber composites have a higher strength-to-weight ratio than conventional aircraft materials and help make the 787 a lighter aircraft. External features include a smooth nose contour, raked wingtips, and engine nacelles with noise-reducing serrated edges, or chevrons. The longest range 787 variant can fly up to 7,635 nautical miles. Its cruising airspeed is Mach 0.85. Among 787 flight systems, another key change from traditional airliners is the electrical architecture. Extensive use of electrical systems eliminates the need for conventional bleed air by using electrically powered pumps, compressors, etc. The 787 has a fly-by-wire control system similar in design to that of the Boeing 777. The flight deck features multifunction LCDs, which use an industry-standard graphical user interface widget toolkit. Honeywell and Rockwell Collins provide flight control guidance and other avionics systems, including standard dual head-up display guidance systems as a standard feature. Like all other Boeing airliners, the 787 uses a yoke as opposed to a side stick. Under consideration is future integration of forward-looking infrared into the HUD for thermal sensing, allowing pilots to see through clouds. Pretty cool. Boeing selected 2 new engines to power the 787. The Rolls-Royce Trent 1000 and General Electric GE NX. These engines use all-electrical bleedless systems, eliminating the superheated air conduits normally used for aircraft power, de-icing, and other functions. Today we are flying the 787-10, which first began commercial service in 2018. The -10 is the longest 787 variant at 224 feet with a capacity of 330 passengers in a 2-class cabin. Okay, enough of that. Walk aboard via the jetway, buckle up, let's fly to Washington, D.C. Good morning, welcome to the flight deck of the Boeing 787-10 Dreamliner. This is FS MaNiA's nonstop flight from the Atlanta Hartsfield International Airport to Washington Dulles International Airport. Welcome aboard. Sit back, relax, enjoy the flight. We're cold and dark right now, but we're going to change that real quick. So I'm just going to go through a very quick down and dirty startup. We'll start here with the battery, very first thing. And let's cut the APU generators off. Since it's off, we have ground power, so we'll cut that on, get some power into the cockpit, and we'll cut on the nav lights and the logo lights, so we've got an indication that there is power on the aircraft. So on the overhead panel, that's really all we need to do, and I like to listen to the ATIS very first caution light's just letting me know that there's a door open. So let's plug in the ATIS, and actually before I do that, I want to bring up ForeFlight. There we are, and let's move it here. So we are at the Atlanta Hartsfield International Airport, ramp 6 on the south side. There's runway 27R right, which I think we'll be using for departure. Let me go over to the airport tab and just take a quick check, and the ATIS is 119.65. So we'll come down and plug that into the VHF. Just listen to the ATIS real quick. 19.65. Enter it into the standby, transfer it, and take a listen.
Atlanta Airport departure information, Quebec 10520. Wind 200 at 6. Visibility 13,000 scattered. Ceiling 17,000 broken. 25,000 broken. Temperature 2.13. Altimeter 2993. Simultaneous departure. Departing runways 26 left, 27 right. Expect turn and off the ground, departing runway 26 left. Expect turn and off the ground, departing runway 27 right. Notices to airmen. Bird activity vicinity of airport. Operate transponder with mode Charlie on the ramp. Taxiways and runways advised on initial contact. You'll have information, Quebec.
Okay, that's all I need to know for right now is what the altimeter setting is and what the ILS, which runway is being used for departure. So we're going to plan for 27 right. So let's come down here and get everything set up in the FMC. So we're going to start here with the position initiation. So we're going to tell it that we are at Atlanta. Plug that in. We're sitting at gate E15. Our heading for departure will be 275. Plug that in. I don't really think that has much bearing. So we can either use the GPS position. This one perhaps is slightly more accurate since we've told it what gate we're at. So we'll put that into the scratch pad and then enter it over here into the set IRS position, and that will get the IRS's aligning. And now let's put in a route. And just to show you how quick we can bring up a route using ForeFlight, let me come back over here, maps and flight plan, and I'm going to type in Atlanta to Washington Dulles, which is Kilo India Alpha Delta, and let's come over and click the routes tab, and I can see that cleared today 846 times total. It looks like a preferred route is the very first one, so I'm going to click that one and I'm going to select that route. Now it wants to know for the Jack 2 departure, it wants to know which runway, so 27 right, and we're using 27 right because it's the longest runway, and we need a lot of runway to get off the ground with the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, so that one will work. And then the Kavler for arrival into Washington Dulles, I'm just going to cancel because we don't know exactly which runway yet. We can add that later. So basically what we want is the BiJack and Jackson waypoints into our flight plan. So we can close the flight plan and we can zoom out and see. There it is. I will change the map to the IFR high map since that's what we're flying. There we go. So and then if we zoom back into Atlanta, we got the taxi diagram up so we can see our route over to 27 right. So all that looks good. Now let's put it in here. So we're going to tell it Atlanta is our origin, departure, runway 27 right. We'll be using for departure. and our destination is Washington Dulles. Give it just a second there, brought it up, and we'll put in our flight numbers, flight 316. Everything's good on that page. Let's go to the next page and let's tell it where we're going. So the first waypoint, and I'm going to just take a quick peek back at it because I've already forgot. It was flight plan BiJack. So let's type in BiJack. I always wonder who names these things. BiJack. And we should get a direct to BiJack, and then Jackson, which was spelled like that, and it should populate Quebec 60, which is a high altitude jet route. So that all looks good. We can plug in our departure from Atlanta, which was the Jack 2 departure, and the runway it already knows that we want to use is 27 right. And let's go back to arrivals. We're going to use the Kavler for arrival, so we'll put that in, and shouldn't have a runway selected yet. We don't. I'm going to execute all that, and it's always good to take a quick look at it. So we'll come up here, click on our plan view, and let's zoom out far enough that we can see our waypoints, and we can come over to the legs page and we can just step through them, and I can see football is the first waypoint on the departure up to Jack 2, and then let's keep stepping over. There's Kellen and BiJack and Jackson, and then the arrival into Dulles. And so all that I'm happy with. So I'm going to zoom that back in so we can taxi out of here. We'll go back to the map view, and all that looks good. Now over here I like to bring up the systems, and we can check in on fuel and starting up our APU, the electric. You can see right now that we are using the ground power, forward and aft ground power is connected to our main bus. So there's our APU generators, here's our engine generators, engine 2 and engine 1. So all that is ready to go, and our engine page is up there. So let's go back into our FMC and let's execute the flight data, and we'll go back to the performance page now, and I'm not going to worry about the reserves. We've got ample fuel, about 50% of the capacity in the wing tanks. We are going to cruise at flight level 330 as per our flight plan. Our cost index as per sim brief is 160, and I don't know if that really makes much difference or not in this dumbed down version of the 787, so it's just okay to put it in there. We'll look at thrust limits. Right now what's selected is derating 10% for takeoff. That seems reasonable to me. We've got a lot more power than we need. We're lightly loaded on this relatively short haul flight. So let's look at our takeoff page. We're going to use flaps 10 for takeoff, and once we put those in, we can get our V speeds, and V1 is 152, VR is 166, and V2 176. So we want to climb out at V2 176 plus 20, which would be 196, so we'll just round it off to 200. So I think that's everything there, and let's go back to the only other thing there is approach. So I'm going to put the route page back up there. In fact, I think I'll display the legs, and football is our first fix. So that's what will be given by ATC. Now let's just take a quick look at our flight control panel here. We've got indicated airspeed right now set for 200 knots. Our heading we'll adjust that to 275, which is runway heading. And our initial altitude is 10,000 feet. I'm satisfied with that. That's what we got with the clearance, so we're good there. So all that's ready, and we're about ready to start up the APU. Let me, before I do that, just plug in our transponder code. So we'll click on transponder 0316. So I'm going to basically let the co-pilot handle the radios for our departure, and so we'll bring them back to VHF. So we've got 3 different radios here, and left, center, and right. And so we will just let the co-pilot deal with all that so we can fly the airplane. Okay, our parking brake is set. That's what we want. So we're going to get our APU started up and prepare for pushback and start up. So to start the APU, the first thing we need to do is to give it some fuel. So we're going to bring on the left aft fuel pump. It's pressurized. Now we can start the APU with the start button, and then we can come down into our stat page and monitor it spooling up. See the RPMs coming up, and once it gets up to 100, we'll be able to bring it online, and then we can disconnect our ground power. There it's at 100%, and we'll just look at the electrical page. You can see that the generators are indicating that they are ready to be brought online. So let's do that now. Bring both of those online, and since they're online, we can now disconnect the ground power. And let's go back and take a check, be sure we got what we want, and we do. We've got the ground power disconnected, APU generators connected, so we're good to go there.
Ramp Delta 316 Heavy, request pushback and startup.
Delta 316 Heavy, pushback and startup approved.
Delta 316 Heavy.
Okay, we've got a clearance for pushback and startup. We've let the tug know. Beautiful morning here in Atlanta. Sun just coming up. All is well with the world. Okay, our tug operator is ready to go. So we'll bring on our beacon. Let's make sure everybody's seated and seat belts are fastened. Release parking brake. Commence pushback. And we're ready for engine start. So we're going to start with engine number 2. Cut on our fuel pumps. Bring our engine into start mode, and we'll monitor the N1 when it gets up to, N2 when it gets up to about 20%. We can add the fuel.
Spirit 919 north on Delta, short of Golf, contact ground at point 9. Have a good one.
And there's 19. We'll add the fuel, and we can go right ahead and start engine number 2. Bring on the fuel. Start. Monitor N2. So 2 good starts.
Delta 448, Bravo 6, push on that.
448,
Okay, that should be good. cut on our flight director. We're going to arm LNAV for the departure. Verify it over here. That looks good. We want to set our auto brake for rejected takeoff. We want 10 degrees of flaps, and we'll verify that we have 10 degrees flaps indicating. It looks like we do. While we're in here, we'll do a flight control check. So ailerons, elevator, rudder.
253, can you hear me? In right on the left side, right when able.
Flight controls look good. Check our gear. Everything looks good there. We look at our door page. Everything's good. Lab's vacant. So I say we are in good shape to go. We can disconnect our generator, our APU, cut that off. Generator's coming off, APU's coming off, and it'll wind down. I'll double check my checklist, be sure that we've got everything done. We'll call for taxi.
Ground Delta 316 Heavy, ramp 6 south, ready to taxi with Quebec.
Delta 316 Heavy, runway 27 right, taxi via Mike.
Runway 27 right, via Mike, Delta 316 Heavy.
One last thing on checklist, let's not forget, we'll bring anti-ice. We're not expecting to need it, but we'll put it up in the auto position just in case. Taxi light comes on. Taxi clearance received. We're going to be taxiing to runway 27 right via Mike. In the past, I have flown pretty much every PMDG airliner that has been published for FSX, including the 747 Queen of the Skies, the MD-11, the Boeing 777, one of my favorites, and the 737 NG. All of those are excellent study-level, fully functional aircraft. And since this MSFS 787 Dreamliner is a default aircraft, I don't think it's fair to compare it to a developer like PMDG that sells their aircraft for almost as much as Microsoft sells the flight simulator for. So if you're a hardcore flight simmer looking for steady level airliners, you're probably going to be disappointed with the functionality of the 787. Most of my issues I have found are with the FMC. Even with the Hangar 9 mod, the FMC has limited functionality. In this video, I will show you a few ways to work around the FMC shortcomings and still get the Dreamliner to go where you want it to. This is taxiway Mike. Hang a left here. Taxiing to the east right into the rising sun. Hello, Mr. Sun. Among 787 flight systems, a key change from traditional airliners is the electrical architecture. The architecture is bleedless and replaces bleed air with electrically powered compressors and 4 of 6 hydraulic power sources with electrically driven pumps, while completely eliminating pneumatics and hydraulics from some subsystems, for example, engine starters and brakes. Boeing says that this system extracts 35% less power from the engines, allowing increased thrust and improved fuel efficiency. The total available onboard electrical power is 1.45 megawatts, which is 5 times the power available on conventional airliners.
Delta 316 Heavy, monitor tower 2385.
Switching to tower Delta 316 Heavy.
Let's go ahead and zoom ourselves out. Do that. About 20 nautical miles for our departure.
4762 Atlanta Tower, winds 19010, runway 27 left, could land, crossway turbulence from heavy Airbus.
Some landing traffic there on 27 left.
Delta 316 Heavy, RNAV to football, runway 27 right, clear for takeoff.
RNAV to football, runway 27 right, clear for takeoff, Delta 316 Heavy.
Pause for just a minute. Get our flight recorder started. We have our clearance. Bring on our lights. Bring them all on. Taxi lights off. Strobes are on. Let the passengers know. Get ready for departure. Approach looks clear. Off we go. And for the departure, we'll bring the HUD down.
Southwest 1322, whole shut of only 27 right, November 5.
Okay, we're lined up. 27 right. I see 27 right. We'll bring our power up to about 50%. Be sure it's all stable. Everything looks stable there. I'm going to hit our toga. And heels on the floor. Off we go. Airspeed's alive. Knots. Check. And rotate. Positive rate, gear up. Autopilot on, flight level change. And let's accelerate to 250 knots.
Delta 316 Heavy, contact departure, good day.
Motor departure, Delta 316 Heavy, see you.
Flaps coming up.
Morning, Atlanta departure, Delta 316 Heavy, 5,000 for 10,000.
Delta 316 Heavy, Atlanta departure, radar contact, I'm going to maintain 14,000.
Up to 14,000, Delta 316 Heavy.
14,000 selected. 250 knots.
Haven't had that work to get in, Delta 1453 out of 6.8.
just monitor everything on our
Delta
way out.
316 Heavy, contact
After
Atlanta
takeoff,
Center
we have auto brakes
134495.
are in the off position,
Center on
flaps are up,
3495,
gear is
Delta
up.
316 Heavy.
Climb through 10,000, we can take off our landing lights. And I think we can ditch the HUD now. And since we're above 10,000, we can
Center,
start
good morning, Delta
increasing our
316
speed.
Heavy, 12000 for 14000.
The 787's a swept wing jet. They like to fly fast.
Up to 19,000,
So a good
316
target
Heavy.
speed for your climb once you get above 10,000 is about 300 knots. So I'll just bring it up slowly to that, and we'll get a good rate of climb all the way up to our cruising altitude, flight level 330.
Delta 316 Heavy, climb and maintain flight level 240. Flight level 240, Delta 316 Heavy. Delta 316 Heavy, climb and maintain flight level 290. Flight level 290, Delta 316 Heavy.
Sound out 1618, within 16.6 for 230.
Atlanta, good morning, Delta 1585, climbing 180 for 230. Climb maintain 50280,
Let the passengers move about the cabin.
Copy, Delta 1585.
And there's flight level 330. We'll go over into Mach. Right now we're climbing at Mach 0.78. We will plan to cruise at Mach 0.85. It would be really nice if the EFB, the Electronic Flight Board, were functional, and hopefully someone someday soon will take care of that. It's nice that it's there. We just need to be able to cut it on. But until then, we have our own. I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. I love ForeFlight. It's going to be helpful on our arrival into Washington Dulles. So we've now leveled off at our cruise altitude, flight level 330. So let's bring our speed up now. I should have already done this. So we want to bring our speed up right on up to Mach 0.85. Right now, ground speed 464. And the auto throttle does a good job of maintaining the speed. So that's useful that you set in here. That's useful. And so once it reaches the target of Mach 0.85, what you set over here, then you'll see the auto throttle idle back to a cruise setting. by Cracky, it is by Jack, and we'll just look in at ForeFlight, and I can see from what ForeFlight is telling me that we're 375 nautical miles away from Dulles, and we're coming up on Beefout and then Kellen next, 10 miles from Kellen, and our ground speed's respectable 496 knots with virtually no wind to help us out, so that's good. I can see we have Charlotte at about our 12 o'clock position, and then after Charlotte, Greensboro, and then we will start our descent up here around Jackson. That's about where we need to start down. We're just cruising along here at flight level 330, 497 knots, ground speed, as happy as we can be. So, stay tuned, sit back, relax, enjoy the flight. We'll see you in a few. Next time on FS MaNiA, we managed to get the 787 off the ground in Atlanta and leveled off at cruise altitude, but will we be able to tame the beast for a respectable landing in Washington, D.C.? Until then, from FS MaNiA, so long.
Son of Alpha 2063. Do you have any ride reports up ahead, or 34 high or lower?